CMYK, 4-colour process, onto a white base. Is it possible? Yeah, it is possible. Anything's possible. Can we actually make money at it? That's the issue. And can we guarantee that our first print looks exactly the same as our last print? What we find if we try and use CMYK onto a white base, it doesn't quite sit right. So when CMYK sits on top of a white base, the colours tend to migrate a little bit. The colours, they lose their strength and the gamut shrinks. And the print can become grey and inconsistent. If we could get perfect photographic prints using only 4 colours and a white base, the press manufacturers, they would only sell 6-colour machines. But they don't. And that's because there's a better method. CMYK works because the inks are transparent, translucent. When a small red dot sits on top of a small yellow dot, we can see through the red onto or into the yellow. And our eye interprets that as orange. Multiply that effect across thousands of dots and we can reproduce millions of colours. Simulated process works differently. Instead of transparent inks, we use opaque spot colours. So instead of placing dots on top of each other, we place dots at the side of each other, next to each other. And as we step back, our eye blends those colours together. There are really 3 ways to create simulated process separations. 1, use a dedicated software such as Separation Studio. 2, send the artwork to a separation bureau, like Graphic Source. 3, do it yourself in Photoshop. I can't do that, that's beyond me. I know Photoshop and I know printing, but I can't put the 2 together like that. So I use either custom color or I recently have been playing with Separation Studio, which I find fantastic, by the way. Super simple to use. It's outside Photoshop, it's not inside Photoshop. So that means it's not a set of recorded actions. It actually looks at the image, analyzes it, and splits it into channels. Does it in about 3 to 4 seconds. It's super quick. But then we're only about 80% of the way. The final 20%, that comes from screen printing knowledge. Once the software's worked its magic, our extra 20% is merging the channels together, deleting the channels that we don't want, and basically applying the colours that we know is going to look good for maybe flesh tones or something like that. I recently did a job which was a company's first exploration into sim process. They'd already had a go at splitting the colour CMYK, putting it onto a white base, and the results were not fantastic. It looks quite grainy, it has no power, and it looks a bit dull. So we ran it through the software. It gave us about 12 channels. We cut that down to just 6. We changed some skin tone colours. We didn't like the red 032, so we changed it for another one. Did a few alterations that are really based on skills developed on press, so a printer's skill. You have to have some printing knowledge and you have to have some artistic knowledge. So then what we do is we end up with our 6 to 8 screens. We've got a toned base, we've got top colours. At this stage, we fall back on the fundamentals of screen printing. Mesh selection, blade selection, angle, travel, pressure, and speed. These 6 fundamentals are the underlying of everything we do in screen print. And what we do with those is we make the decisions. Colour order. It's important, colour order. Like I said before, a red on top of a yellow, we see the red. A yellow on top of a red, we see the yellow. So we've got to be careful on our colour order. The mesh counts I like to use for this are all above 90 because the frequency of the dot we're going to use, depending on what we're printing onto, this particular one was 55 LPI. It was an elliptical dot. And those choices are made because we're going onto a horrible substrate, which I'll show you later on. Once we get to press, that's when our skill comes in. We now need to fall back on these fundamentals and to use a little bit of the wet on wet principles that we've been learning about, which is start hard, finish soft, just like a normal Saturday night. We've got progressively less aggressive blade selections, so progressively less aggressive angles and pressure, trying to protect the previous colour. Once we bring all this together, I think you can see here we've got a really good print. We picked a horrible first job because it's got skin tones. Skin tones are notoriously difficult because our eye picks up when they're off. If you're looking at a red rose that's been specially separated and it's a little bit too pink, your eye doesn't pick it up. You just think, oh, it looks nice. But if you're looking at a skin tone that's too pink, you think, has he been out in the sun? Or if it's too yellow, it's like, you maybe should go see a doctor. So skin tones are notoriously difficult. Not impossible, just difficult. Here we picked the skin tones, and we went onto a substrate which was a open weave, rough finished, chocolate brown hoodie. Once we have that, it's then down to us to pick high quality screens, ideally 20 newtons and above, and ideally all within 2 newtons of each other. Mesh count according to the image. I like to use 90s and 120s. That's 230s and 305s if you're American. And we want to reduce the amount of ink that we put down there. We want to try and keep each channel, each screen, roughly the same. Once we follow these rules or these guidance, then we should be getting some really stunning 4-color process, pseudo process, prints onto any variety of substrate. So the process is simple. Get the artwork separated correctly. That's where it all starts. Create dedicated color channels. Then apply good printing fundamentals. If those 3 things are correct, simulator process can produce stunning results. If you've had some really good results with CMYK on a white base, drop a comment, post a picture, let's have a look, tell us how you did it. For me, I will always say when somebody asks me, can I do CMYK on a white base? I said, yes, I can. No, I don't want to. I'd much rather run it through software, get some opaque separations done, and run it onto a press where I know that the first print is going to look the same as the last print. If you want to stay up to date with all the little knowledge base that we're building here, then subscribe to the channel. Always catch me on Instagram. And if there's anything you want to see on here, just drop it in the comments, drop me a DM on Insta anytime. Till next time, bye.